It's Rachel, and we did it. We built our DIY freestanding trellis for less than 20 bucks with parts that are readily available at any hardware store. I'm going to walk through the overall design and the components. I will do a detailed cost breakdown at the end. I will also talk about what we're growing and why. And last, I will talk about the orientation of the trellis in general, as well as the plants within it and the general layout of this patio garden. Overall design is a big L shape. The reason is these 4 grow bags, or really any container in which you are growing, will weigh down the bottom and prevent the top from tipping over backwards. We did weigh these. You can see this one is over 100 pounds with the soil and the plants. So 4 of those creates a lot of downward force. That fundamentally also relies upon the strength of the joint where they come together. I will show you a detailed close-up here. You can see we have the PVC comes down and fits into an elbow piece. We then have a T-shaped piece where the back horizontal comes in. There's a small piece of PVC pipe connecting those 2 pieces together, and all of it is cemented together. I will do updates through the growing season. If we have a windstorm especially, I'll be really transparent about how this holds up. We did design it in general so that airflow can come through it, and hopefully in the event of a windstorm that will also help to prevent it from coming apart. Materials, you need 4 10-foot lengths of 1/2-inch PVC, and I will show you how you cut them. 3 of them are cut into 2 3-foot lengths, and the remainder of those are cut into 2-foot lengths, and then the last piece is cut into 1-foot lengths. The 3-foot lengths are used for these top and bottom and these horizontal rails, also the pieces that are underneath the grow bags. And the 2-foot pieces are used along the sides. We cut them into 1 foot for the base here. Doing that meant we could drop 3 PVC pieces in the bottom, and the grow bags could land on the front piece of the PVC, the back piece, and the middle. Because again, we want the weight of these grow bags to really hold the whole thing down. Having that middle piece gave us more of a platform on which that weight could rest. The netting is held onto the PVC with simple zip ties, and the netting itself is available also at the hardware store or Amazon, but this is just simple nylon netting, nothing expensive. Connectors, we have elbows at the outer corners, top and bottom, and the big L that I showed before. We have T connectors holding these horizontal rails in place, as well as in the middle of the bottom of it to give that middle rail. All in, these materials came to less than $20. If you needed to buy zip ties, that would be a little bit more, or PVC cement, but a little jar of that is like $4 or $5, and zip ties are not expensive. We just had these on hand. In terms of what to grow, always start with what you're going to actually eat. That's step 1. Because this design is at its greatest advantage when you have a small amount of space, I focused on high density per square foot of growing, and also plants that benefit from frequent picking. Anything you're growing right outside your back door is going to be easier to harvest regularly or prune, and I decided to focus on plants that would benefit from that. That includes herbs, that includes salad greens, that includes vining beans. It would include cucumbers. We are not growing any cucumbers this year because we grew too many last year and my husband is sick of them. But if I were to grow cucumbers, this would be a great place to do it. Starting with the left front, this was planted with arugula and with spinach, as you can see. And in the middle, these 2 tiny little seedlings, I have planted a Nepalese bell pepper. This is my first year growing this, and I'm pretty excited about it. This supposedly will reach up to 5 feet tall and should cast a good amount of shade onto those salad greens beneath as the summer gets hot. The other bag here in the front, bit of a similar story. This is full of arugula, and in the middle of it, I have planted a determinate, meaning it reaches a fixed height and sets a fixed amount of crop, tomato. That's aroma here. And I will probably give this a stake to help hold it up, but the main point is it will bush out and it will provide shade to the salad greens below. You can also see as they bolt,
trying to zoom in there for you, they attract beneficial insects, including pollinators. And so as this tomato sets flowers and needs to be pollinated, they will help with that process in much the same way as this back bed.
My herbs, my parsley and my coriander here have already bolted, and we've let that alone.
What I've done is that in the back of these beds, I have placed an indeterminate tomato in each one. So this will grow quite tall and really should be grown on this trellis to support it. Same thing over here. I have an indeterminate variety that will grow and set a large number of tomatoes on it. You cannot see it, but next to each of those I planted beans. And both of those will vine up this trellis, and they will benefit from the airflow and the support of the trellis. Extra benefit, the nitrogen fixing functionality of the beans will help give a little bit of boost to the tomatoes growing next to them. So there's an additional stacking of benefits there. These summer crops that are in the back of the beds start to grow up the vine. Those are fruiting crops that need the pollination. So these will attract pollinators to those crops. Last, let's talk orientation and the overall layout in time and in space. A lot of the advice would be to put the trellis on the north side, which is where I'm standing, so that the sun from the south, assuming you're living in the northern hemisphere here, the sun would come from the south and you don't want to shade things. And so you always hear put the trellis on the north side. I'm trying to do a spring, summer, and fall garden, and in that case, some shade is a good thing. I have put the trellis on the west. The reason is in the morning when the sun comes in from the east and it's still pretty chilly, everything gets full sunlight. In the middle of the day, they all get decent sunlight. But when you get to the hottest part of the day in the early evening and the sun starts to set, as the summer crops grow up this, they will cast shade on the grow bags below. As those summer crops fill out this trellis, they will cast heavier and heavier shade. When we get to the hottest part of the summer, it would otherwise be very hard for me to even get things like lettuce to germinate because the soil would be too hot. But with all of that shade cast onto them, I can hopefully take advantage of those microclimates and get a decent crop of fall salad greens out of this garden as well, including possibly some herbs. The other orientation note is access. If I had put the trellis on the north edge of the patio, I would have to walk off of the patio in order to access it from the back, because in our case, I have more patio space here. By putting the trellis on the west, I can access things like the tomatoes and the beans as they're growing up this very easily, and I can prune and I can harvest regularly. As always, I hope that was helpful. I will be very transparent on how this thing works and holds up, especially if we have a windstorm, but I am optimistic about it. I'm happy with how it turned out, especially for the cost, and it was a great way to use up my extra transplants and do an experiment for those of you that are growing without access to a backyard or a large garden space. I hope you're having a great growing season, and as always, thank you for watching. I will catch you in our next video. Thanks.